All right, so good afternoon, Honorable Ben Igbakpa from Delta State. It's a pleasure to have you on Deep Dive this afternoon. I'm sorry we have to drag you away from your holiday, but it's an important conversation, and I'm glad to have you on this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning from my end.
Yeah, so let's get straight to it, and I'll start with the issue of the PIB bill that has been the subject of a lot of controversy, especially for people in the Niger Delta. The Senate finally agreed to pass the bill with the 3%, to host communities in the Niger Delta. Of course, the House of Representatives had argued for 5%, but the Senate had to settle for 3%. Governor Odom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom State said that it was unacceptable, considering the devastating effects on members of, host communities, and he was going to be engaging other governors to make a pronouncement, on the issue. The chairman of the Shekiri Leaders of Thought, Chief Edward Ekpoko, also was vehemently against the 3% that was passed, and he has urged President Muhammad Buhari to withhold his assent to the bill until the right and fair thing was done. In fact, he's arguing for about 10%. And the list goes on. Pandef, Mossop, all of them insist that this has to go beyond 3%. Let me first start by asking you, why is it that 3% is so terrible and is so bad a deal for host communities in the Niger Delta? And why is there an argument for that amount to move to, say, 5 or 10%?
Well, first, the issue of I would say the issue of trust is one basic thing. We have followed a system where a certain part of the country is considered to be like the masters, and the our region, which is the basically the oil producing region of the country, which is the south, is considered to be a second class region in the country. So we, over time, over the years, there's been this issue of trust, that whatever is coming up, there is an undertone. There seems to be an under the table activity. Uh, so we can only trust ourselves before we can actually go into any conversation as a nation to to deal and agree that yes, whatever you are doing is intended to bring about peace, fairness, and equity. And be that as it's made, the issue of 3%, though overhyped, because the basic line that one should look at really is the first thing is that we are we are better off adding the 3% than where we are. That's one thing that we must agree. It might not be enough, but it's an addition to what we have. We've had the NDDC, we had the 13% derivation, we had our Niger Delta Ministry, and this time we're coming to add something which is statutory to the oil producing communities. Because before now, we don't have anything for oil producing communities. They go into a GMOU with these companies, and I know a lot of them don't honor, they don't respect the GMOU. They write for 4 years, and for the 4 years, you see somebody. I mean, the the oil companies, oil majors, doing maybe 10% of the total lettering of that agreement. So that 3% is coming. It's not what we expected, but the bottom line is that we're better off with the 3%. And again, the PFP generally, we all agree that the oil sector is one sector where today they say we are losing, tomorrow we are making profit because of the governance structure. So the PIB is to address that. I think one area why our people are so agitated is the 30% for the frontier basins. The frontier basins is the frontier is supposed to be areas where there's probability of oil, and there's need for the government to prospect and see if there will be oil there, because nobody will come and say, I want to go do check your areas to confirm. They want any investor will want to see that there's oil here, and they are coming straight to drill and get. So we must acquire the seismic data that will deal with that. And in dealing with that, the government will have to be the first risk taker. They should be the one to do that investigation and exploration. And frontier basin is not only in the north, but there's this saying that oil, in about 40 years' time, the value of oil will not be what it is today. No, I disagree in strong terms, but the world is moving and we have to move along. And in doing that, the if you're saying that in 40 years' time, oil will not be what it is today, and we have bases that we have data already of some areas where oil is domiciled, where we have oil. Why are we now spending so much, 30% of the annual profit of oil activities in this, as regards this petroleum industry activities, to look at new areas where there are areas that are ready for harvest? So that's correct, and that
Yes,
to be
yeah,
so.
and I just wanted to quickly say this because I understand the point that you make. First of all, when you said that 3% is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So let's go a bit granular now. So what will be the position, of honorable members like yours, like you from the South, and all the socio-cultural groups in the South, while they are talking about the president not accepting to that bill? Would they call a truce at 5%, or it's 5% or nothing? Or would you like to see a situation where some of the profits that are supposed to go into the frontier basins are plowed back into the South communities?
Well, talking as first as a South now a Southerner, and somebody from an oil producing community, I'll rather say yes. Part of the 30% should be plowed back into the oil producing communities. That's one. Then two, uh, on the legislative side, looking at the legislative process, there's hardly anything anybody can do if you're saying let us follow the constitution and the lawmaking process. It's almost at the dead end. And I think what can come up is there should be room for maybe further discussion, and then we can make a reversal of certain decisions that have been taken. That's the only way. If we say, okay, let's follow the legislative process, it's almost at the dead end, because the House of Representatives has told the part of the Senate, and it's there. Just
All right, I want to talk to you a bit about governance in terms of the amounts of money that has been plowed into the South, and how those monies have been used judiciously,
yeah.
in the South. But before I do that, I just like to quickly ask you, where is the sense? And I know that you have the argument that oil will still be relevant 40 years from now. But you would argue that the oil economy employs just a few amount of people. You have oil companies that makes billions of naira in turnover every year, and it could employ less than 200 people. Why aren't we investing all of these profits in building capacity of young people and training them in STEM and in other skills that will make them relevant in the 21st century, rather than applying back 30% of profits into still prospecting for oil, which quite frankly, even though you argue against that, is not the path to the future. I don't know why that is, and I expect legislators to be arguing against that position, and to be saying we need to be investing in our young people to prepare them with the relevant skills and technologies to make them competent and competitive in the 21st century.
Well, I quite agree with you, because when issues come up like this, it is not everything really that is I quite believe that in the course of, because there's going to be a subsidiary legislature that will follow this PIB. Uh, I know that for oil producing communities, the 3% that we're talking about, there's no mention of how it's going to be expended when it comes to implementation in the law, and those are going to come. So these are some of the areas that I believe that we still follow when the time for that subsidiary legislation will come, because we can't, when we're talking about the 30% for frontier basins, you just brought another angle to it, human capital development. We should be able to impact our young ones, our people, the technical and know-how of the oil producing sector. So I think that that's one area that the cost of the execution and implementation of the 30%, certain percentage can be earmarked. But already you know that we have the Petroleum Trading Fund, the PTF fund. I know that can be an argument that we already have one, but if 30% is coming, maybe they can add to the PTF fund instead of creating multiple agencies that will handle the same feat for.
Oh, okay, Honorable. So let's talk a bit about governance now. We just talked about, I mean, there's a lot of noise about the PIBB, the 3%, 5%. But before that, there was the NDDC, where billions of naira have been appropriated, budgeted and appropriated for South states. We saw the drama that erupted in the National Assembly sometime last year, where billions of naira seem to be unaccounted for, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. At least from my last count, about 3 billion were completely unaccounted for. And this is not to talk of, the other billions of naira that just could not be explained away. If you looked at the 2021 budget for the Niger Delta is about 453 billion. In the last 10 years, we've appropriated close to 3 trillion naira into the Niger Delta. Where are those monies going to? Why is there very, very poor governance in terms of how these monies are spent? And why is there very little accountability? If you look at the structure that even sets up the NDDC, you see that even governors have some level of oversight, to the extent that these monies are spent in projects within their states. But it just seems like nobody is saying anything. You have hundreds and hundreds of abandoned projects, very little development, and there are trillions of naira going into the South. So how do we reconcile this when people say you are asking for more money, whereas what has been given to you already, we just see very little development happening in the South?
Well, first, the on the NDDC, I think the NDDC is the basic thing, is the major one that is draining us. That investigation, I was part of it. I remember I re-echoed the issue of the 1.5 billion that they used to take care of themselves that led to upon this magical fainting. And I keep telling people, Nigerians not allow 469 members of the National Assembly, the president and the vice president, making it 471 national office holders in terms of election to decide the fate of Nigerians. We did that investigation, and I tell you, it's sad. It's quite saddening, and my heart is heavy that to date, that report is yet to surface. As a parliamentarian, I feel it shouldn't be so, because if you're doing investigation, if you conduct investigation, what the people are expected to get is the report, good or bad. Bring out the report so that the public can scrutinize your report and possibly pick holes where there are areas that they feel that you've not reported properly. But that report has not surfaced. I quite agree with you. A lot has gone into NDDC, and we're not seeing anything for it. NDDC, until date, is still happening. The people, contractors will work, they won't be paid, but contractors that are doing what they call water hyacinth, the one they clear, you clear it in the morning and in the evening is back. Those ones are being paid. So it's I think people need to sit and really talk to the people, the administrators of this agency. But again, until they do away with politics in the appointment, today it is APC. The governors don't even know who you are appointing from their state. You sit at the party level and you appoint people, possibly people with questionable characters, and you see these characters trying to recycle themselves. Not too long ago, I learned of a character in the interim committee coming back to want to be something. It's sad, and the governors who are supposed to be like another level of monitoring for the NDDC are not carried along, so they don't know. That's why you see governors that are saying, I remember I saying, don't even do anything in my state, because what you are doing is not in tandem with my own plan. Because every government have their plans, they have their infrastructural plan. So if you're coming, you key into it. That is where we can make it. But where the government is doing, the state government is doing their own to the left, and NDC is doing to the right, it doesn't aid development. And whether we like it or not, as a country, our infrastructure gap is very wide. And the south, we are just not there. Our south, the what do you call, the east-west road had been on. Now we have, we once had our brother as the president of the country. They didn't do it. Now we have our own as the minister of Niger Delta. Nothing, not much is happening. So it's sad that I'm sure we're actually the problem of ourselves.
I like the part where you just landed, that when you say that we're actually the problems of ourselves, because this leads me to the next question, because there's been this talks about the amendment of the Constitution in the National Assembly, where even a public hearing was held across the 6 geopolitical zones, owing to the agitations of people who want a different kind of republic. Because the argument is, if you, for instance, restructure Nigeria, wherein some say if you devolve more power to the states, we'll be better off. But you also have some non-state actors who are clamoring for a complete secession. People want a Biafra republic. Some people want an Oduduwa republic, and what have you. And I'm here wondering, because, like you said, we are the problems of ourselves. Do you really think that a change in the Constitution will solve many of the basic problems that we have been talking about all day long? Because it's, for instance, the acts that sets up in the NDDC, there are clear governance structure in it that should naturally supervise how these monies are spent. But at the end of the day, we still have many questions. So the first question is, do you think that our problem is really about the Constitution? And if we devolve more powers to the state, or if we go the way of the secessionists, do you think we'd have a better country? And what are your thoughts about that generally?
Well, first, the Constitution is one, but I would say the Constitution is the topmost. If you give me the opportunity to highlight them in order of importance, first, it's our persons, our conscience, our minds. Our mindset is very, very polluted, very bad. That if you bring an angel, there are people here on earth that will frustrate the angel, and the angel will have no choice than to start listening to them. There are people that are so powerful at evil, and we need to change that first. That's secondly, the Constitution. The Constitution will help us if we do, when people talk about restructure. For me, restructure is devolution of powers. If you give us what belongs to us, if as a state we have full resource control, then we'll be close. We can now take responsibility. Today, our governors go to Abuja and they say, oh, the money they gave us is not enough. But if you are giving what you have in your area to harness and pay certain royalties to the center, I don't think it will be difficult for us to now hold them fully accountable. But now it goes to the center. The center takes about 52% and they share the other ones among the other two tiers of government. And these people are complaining. So for me, the Constitution will do a lot, but we have to do so much more on ourselves as individuals and Nigerians, and wear the code of patriotism and allegiance, our constitution and our country.
I mean, I'll agree with you more about the fact that we have to do a lot more, about ourselves, because you needed to see my shock when the billions of naira that were talked about during the COVID-19, and there wasn't any outrage, and I was wondering how does this amount of money go unaccounted for, and people are not. So if we can't ask questions when we have 13% derivation, and I'm sorry, this sounds like I'm probing the South a lot, because this happens everywhere in the country. This is not just about the South, but I mean, because you represent a community there. But my argument is, if we can't hold them accountable for the 13%, we can't hold them accountable for the NDDC, we can't hold them accountable for the monthly fact that gets to them, we can't hold them accountable for the amounts that they take from local governments. How are we now going to hold them accountable when they are now in charge of the cookie jar? I think that it might just be.
I come from a state. I'm from Delta State, and I'm in Abuja, and we try to still peep into what is happening. I know that my governor had to every month had to up something from the state coffers to ensure that the local government salaries are paid. There are some local governments, I don't know of governors that are playing or touching the funds of their local government, but my state government and my state governor is always, it has been like that from the previous administration where I serve as a commissioner to the present one, he is still doing it. So I think I don't actually know the truth of that argument that some state governors tamper with because I think why they are saying that is because of the joint joint account. I think that is the issue. But again, if you leave this money, this local government have been proven over time to be like an appendage of the state because of the method of our election, local government elections, where the state independent electoral commission do what they like under the control of the governor. So they kind of appoint people, and after that appointment, because the offices are not properly keenly contested for, you have people that are not qualified, people that doesn't have the capacity to actually lead, sitting as council chairman. Some only come to office when there's allocation. They don't have developmental blueprint. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to even generate revenue. They wait for the revenue from the federal government and maybe what the state government will add to it for them to pay, and that's all. So I think by the time with this amendment, if it sails through and the state independent electoral commissions are scrapped and the INEC conduct election where people with capacity can come out and contest election, then you can trust them with funds. Some of them you give them money and they won't still do anything.
I mean, you always lead me to the next question I ask, is some telepathic genius that you probably have somewhere, because I was going to now lead into elections proper, which is one of the things you have debated in the House, which is the electronic transmission of votes that seem to have gone, partisan ways. It looked like one party overwhelmingly voted against it and the other party overwhelmingly voted for it. But because I'm going to end with that question, before I do that, so that I just don't forget, there's been the debate, I think, in the Senate, a particular Senate committee is recommending the creation of 20 more states in the Federation. I'm wondering, given the unviability of several states, the fact that many states are completely insolvent and without federal allocation will collapse completely, what is the sense in creating 20 more states when many of them would just simply be going to Abuja cap in hand, for handouts? I would have argued we should just strengthen local governments, but let me hear from you what the thinking behind that might be, and if it makes any sense to you.
Well, some of them, fortunately, I am in the committee for constitutional amendment. Was posted to the Kano zone. In Kano zone, we received so many memoranda, and one of them, I did two of them, requesting for states because Kano, Kaduna, Zamfara, no, I think Katsina. So and what their reason all as a result of marginalization. minority non-inclusion in governance. And that is, most times you find out that these are people that have maybe mineral resources. They are contributing hugely to the state and the national coffers, but nothing is coming to them. When it comes to governance, they don't have the strength. They can never be governors. They are not even appointed as commissioners. So the next thing is, okay, give us our states. So we need to talk to ourselves. We need to run all-inclusive government. We need to consider the plight of the minority. Yeah, along, I think these agitations will be less. For me, I don't see any need, any sense, and uh, possibly reason for state creation, because the ones we have now, I know about 50% of them are not viable. They need the federal government to survive. They are on oxygen. That is how they've been surviving, and creating more will further impoverish the country.
I mean, to me, it just looks to me like some elite consensus, because when you create more states, the man who couldn't be governor in one of those states eventually can now become governor in the new state. He can now become senator. So, these are not, to me, these are not just agitations of the common man. The common man just wants opportunity for him to climb the social ladder. He wants to feed his family. He wants security and all of that. I think it's politicians who wants more states so they can become senators and ministers. So finally, honorable, I want to talk to you about our elections, because you talked about how poor many state electoral commissions are, and many Nigerians are also worried about the coming elections in 2023, how transparent, how credible those elections will be, and many are making the arguments of the electronic transmission, of votes. First, let me ask, do you believe that our votes should be transmitted electronically? And secondly, what are you doing in the House to ensure that the Electoral Act, with many of these provisions that will make our elections safer, more transparent, and more credible, would pass before the 2023 elections?
Ayo, my answer to the first question: yes, yes, and yes. I want our electoral result transmitted electronically. That is what I voted for. But in a constitutional democracy like ours, uh, the minority will have their say, while the majority will have their way. And you remember that the members of the opposition party have to walk out because of the way that the chairman of uh, the session, which is the deputy speaker, was carrying on with the voting process. We actually wanted it done. Even if you, at the end of the day, you have the figure, there's no problem. But a situation where people seem to be shuttered down, people not allowed to. I remember I wanted to make an amendment to the section that has to do with political parties deciding what their delegates for primaries should be. I don't think it's the business of INEC to decide who should be a delegate for a political party. They should be allowed to decide who should be their delegate. All they need to do is to submit their delegate list to INEC. But part of the bill was now suggested, oh, it should be secretary to this, secretary to that. That is taking the powers of the political parties. And I want to urge the political parties to fight it, because that is going too far. They are a party, they are a body, they should be allowed internal activity, internal democracy, do their thing, and pass on the buck to INEC so INEC can supervise, not INEC deciding who should be, you must be this, you must be that before you become. It doesn't. Who becomes a delegate in one party might not be a delegate in another party. Depends on what they want to choose. And I remember I was hushed down. Oh no, don't. We passed there, and that we passed there is one of the things that led to you. It was a rowdy session, and our microphones are not too loud. At times you want to, your hands are up, and But presiding officers have a lot of powers, and most times they will even see you and they look the other side. And that was what happened. And that happened before the final one that brings the cameras back, where the Section 52 ought to be revisited. And Mr. Chairman, who's the Deputy Speaker, said it has been carried. What we wanted to do was to agree. If it's okay, that is it. Let us go into division. Because I know that there are some persons in the APC that actually wanted the electronic transmission too, but they cannot come out because it seems to be a party decision. But if you allow maybe for a division, we will know who voted who. Like in the Senate, the names of those that voted for, those that voted against are there. So that is what we wanted to achieve. But when he didn't listen, the minority leader, who is the leader of the caucus, instructed us that we have to let them do their thing. But that did not invalidate what they have done, because it's only for us to tell the world we're not part of it. But that did not invalidate it, because the two-third majority is what is expected, and it has been like that. It has been like that. We will only come out maybe when we resume. Let's see how we can visit, if there's anything. But like the PIB, the legislative process is almost closed too. There's not much one can do, unless there will be room for conversation, for discussion, and give and take. It's okay. Let's go back to it, which is still very possible, because the House rule permits for any matter that has been concluded, you can come back under a substantive motion to revisit it and discuss. Possibly we can still get somewhere, but for now it's almost like. But the House of Representatives version of the bill is still very good, because they're saying that INEC should be given the opportunity, as enshrined in our constitution, section 72 or so, that said that gave it to INEC. INEC should be the one to decide their mode of election. They are to supervise. So nobody should supervise INEC. Nobody should tell INEC how to do their work. So that is what the House of Reps has passed, because the Constitution supersedes, is the ground norm. No other law like what the Senate did. I'm sure by the time they resume, they are going to sit and look at it and see that no, I think we have erred here, because that's an aberration. That is an injury to the Constitution, which is supposed to be really revered and respected. Nigeria has come of age. We fought a war in this country to keep Nigeria united, and the injury, the scar of that war is still there. Presently, we are fighting to remain united, and I think people should bury their individual differences and interests and think about the unity of the country, so that we don't go back there to where we have left 1960 something, and what we are even experiencing today. It's enough for Nigerians. Allies.
That's a fabulous way to end the conversation, Honorable Ben. It's a pleasure speaking with you today, and I hope that we can do this again sometime in the future. Thank you for joining us today.
It's available, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you very much.